Hey, welcome back to Drift Spot. As part of the club, we thought we'd do ourselves a set of videos which are called Under the Shell. So essentially a talk about our cars, what the different cars are like, and what cars we run in the club. We're still newbies and we're still learning, but we have been pretty busy leveling things up and moving on from the previous videos you might have seen. So one thing I did was sell my D4 and buy a D5. Difference I found is quite drastic between the two chassis, and today we're going to be talking about my D5 and having a look at how it's progressed, how things have moved on for this. So to start off with, I run a Pandora JZX 100 chaser shell. This is one that comes with the separate bumpers that have to be glued on. It's my first go at doing a metal flake, so I did a metal flake. It wasn't the lame flake paint, it was a different metal flake. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like it. I think it was one hell of a flake, as in it is very flaky. I kind of said that it was metal flake with a hint of green. It looks much more green in the flesh than it is doing on this video right now. But that is a very deep, rich green with metal flake over the top. So, I bought the Pandora. We were pretty unimpressed with the shell. I think they're dead flexible, dead white wibbly wobbly. But since driving it and having a good few accidents with it, it seems to actually be pretty damn tough, and it's not really showing any damage so far, even though it's had a good few smacks into walls and other people and God knows what. So pretty impressed so far with the reliability of the Pandora shell. Okay, so here's what we're actually talking about though. Let's have a look under the shell and have a look what the D5 has got going on. You can ignore my fluffy bit, that was to try and stop the Pandora shell from cracking if I have a front impact. Yeah, so 1D5, start at the back, I think. So ESC motor wise, things like that, I run a Onisiki motor, which is a 10.5. Crikey, it's dusty in there. Sorry about that. Haven't cleaned it since last night's drifting. I've got a quick run 120 amp Hobbywing. I'm hoping to upgrade that at some point, but it was a really great starting point for a cheap ESC. I think they're only 30-40 pounds. 40 pounds. It's like a bit like a Toro copy, and so far so good. I did upgrade the capacitors, so I've got an Onisiki Supercap hidden down there, and the Onisiki gyro there. The servo I ran is a Kingmax, although again this is another cheap part that I got. It's only sort of £30 I think for the servo, but that's a part that I want to change out. So of my kit so far, the three things I actually want to change are Kingmax servo, I want to change the gyro, and I'd like to change the ESC. The ESC I'd really like to play around with one that has boost, although this has got punch. I've set the punch to max. I run the timing pretty much maxed out to get the punch that I need to get it to step into tight bends. The gyro, although I like the gyro, I have a slightly strange issue, which I hope goes away when I change the servo, which is that every now and again the steering, if you are quite aggressive, sort of left right in a bend in a like tight section, every now and again the steering just locks itself out, pauses for a second while the gyro resets, and then comes back out of that. Whether that is the fact that the servo can't keep up, whether the fact that the gyro can't keep up, there's something going on between the two, and that's what I want to solve. So I'm going to do what I wanted to do, which is buy a nicer servo first, see how that goes. If that doesn't solve it, then I think I'm going to go to a Yokomo V4 gyro, and then the hopefully the Toro ESC eventually. So my advice so far is that to get yourself started and moving, great set of kit, works absolutely fine. But once you start to get a little bit more passionate about the sport, then you're probably going to want to upgrade things even further, which is definitely the cycle I found myself in. Okay, so talking more about the D5 chassis and the differences between this and the D4, I found that the D5 was a really good chassis straight off the bat. straight away with the D4, when you watch my previous videos, I found there was loads of sort of struggling with it. It wouldn't quite sort of drift smoothly, it wouldn't hold the drift very well, it was quite sort of pointy and quite aggressive, but wouldn't really slide smoothly, like a sort of smooth pendulum effect. Whereas this one will do that. Now the main difference is that obviously the motor is out back. You know, there's loads of D5 reviews online, but we're kind of talking about my D5 really. The motor's out back. I've moved the motor into the high motor position. I made myself a carbon fibre motor mount, moved up high. Actually found that it to be not as good, wasn't as grippy, wasn't as quick, and I quite like the fastness to it, the grip up at the back, so I actually moved it back to the low mount. I also really struggled with shells, so I've got an array of shells up here hung on the wall. This was just a cheap sort of smasher. The Camero, I actually had to cut the rear back window out. I ended up making a 3D printed louvre for it, which looked pretty cool, but cut the rear back window out to get the motor to fit in. The 240Z shell, that fits the motor pretty well. In the low mount position though, I had to sort of do a half cut rear bumper on it to make it so it fitted. So it's quite interesting to see how the motor in the position out back means some shells are a little bit too short. The motor in the position high up means that some shells don't have, you know, a deep enough rear window section that means it hits the motor. So a couple of issues really with shells wise, and careful picking your shell if you're going to run a D5. Now I've noticed that they've just released a new D5, which is the MR, so the mid rear motor setup. So it flips the motor over to here and flips the gearbox. Now a lot of enthusiasts of the D5 have been doing that anyway. They've been making up different top parts of the chassis here and then moving everything and flipping everything over. And I haven't really felt the need to do that yet. So I'm just kind of staying as I am. Maybe it'll be interesting to get a mid rear as a second car or do something different. So as a chassis, like I say, found it as an instant upgrade over the D4, although I know there are some very sorted D4 chassis out there, but I really struggled with mine to get it set up, and as a newbie, that was really sort of disheartening at times. So I found the D5 instantly better for me as a driver. Some of the things I've done to it then, I've got the upgraded Yeah Racing aluminium shocks with the springs that they came with. No upgrade on the springs there. I run 150 weight oil at the front and 150 weight at the back, so it's just literally the softest oil I had all round, which makes it nice and sort of soft and springy. Okay, and the same at the back, although a little softer due to the weight, and of course it's again even softer once you've got the weight of the battery in there. I upgraded to the carbon decks and the carbon servo mount, so upper deck, lower deck and servo mount. I understand these are slightly less flexible, and if you want to run on things like resin and you need chassis flex in the sort of twist to keep you gripping up, then that might not necessarily be the best idea. But my thoughts about that were to loosen off the top deck and try and get myself a bit of play in there to keep the carbon decks, because they just look sexy and cool, and that's what it's all about. I got the 3 Racing extra cover on the Spur gear. I run a fan, just a simple eBay fan, which is only about sort of £8 or £9, which just looks cool with the motor and works quite happily with the Yeah Racing motor mount that mounts it really nice and neatly to the motor. You can see there, this piece here. Again, that hit a few shells, so that was a bit of a pain at times, but works really well when you buy yourself a nice big fat JDM boy shell like the JZ. So another part that I have here added to it was the full kit from Yeah Racing, the arm kit that they sell. Now this one has alley top arms, you can see there, and alley bottom arms, which have more clearance for the steering arms, which is really nice. The top arms have caster adjustment, and on visiting a local drift place in Wakefield, which was NRD, great place to go to tune and mess around with your cars. I basically sent it out and kept adjusting my caster until I felt that I had enough sort of front grip and was driving how I wanted it to drive. which was really good to be able to do. It also enabled me to run the spacers in a different position, which I know a lot of people do anyway. So I've got the spacers up the front there on both to move the front arms back a little bit, and then I could adjust my caster from there, which also meant I shortened the chassis slightly. At the back, I've got the same Racing bottom arms, which are adjustable in length as well, so you can adjust the camber at the bottom end there. Again, mine's spaced with the spacer. Got a little blue spacer there you can see at the back to shorten the chassis slightly. So the D5 is actually ever so slightly longer than most chassis. I think it's 260mm rather than 257, and it has made some shells a bit of a pain to fit. So by putting the spacers in the right position, you can get the shells to fit nicely. Again, sorry about all the dust in there. I really need to clean that after last night. Wow, that is gross. But it's about the car, not the cleanliness. Usually I keep this so clean. That is gutting. I'm really sorry. So, yeah, the arm kit comes with all the bottom arms at the back, bottom arms at the front, top arms at the front, and then also it comes with the, I'll just try and get the camera in there, aluminium knuckle kit. So it's got aluminium knuckles front and rear. Which are the KPI knuckles, so you can just see the rear ones there, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased with those. And on the whole, after fitting the whole kit with the alley knuckles and details, it just meant that I could set the car up exactly as I wanted it and keep tweaking it, keep messing with it, and get it exactly as I like, which I really appreciate. It certainly made the car a lot more adjustable to mess around with how it drives. Other elements it comes with is this aluminium top suspension mount, which is fully pimping. It comes with, although it's covering it up right now, a carbon fibre front mount for the magnets with a cool little sort of Racing aluminium piece on the front there as well. So it's a really nice kit. It came to about sort of £120, I think it was, or £115. Which, considering if you were to buy all those parts separately, it's like £20 for the top arm, £20 for the bottom arms, £20 for the rear arms, £20 for this, £20. When you add it all up, it was more like £150, £160 for all those parts. So it's quite cool that you can get all of the details there. And I think that by doing it this way, comparing it to, say, the aluminium version of the D5, I think you get more adjustability. So I'm quite pleased that I didn't go straight off the bat and buy the carbon D5 or the aluminium D5, because this way I've got kind of a D5 with lots of Racing hop-up parts, and they also are more adjustable, which is pretty cool. So overall, a pretty neat looking car. Incidentally, the wheels are run are the drift elements. Wheels which are adjustable offset. They're getting a bit gnarled around the edges now, but I have them set to ET10 all round to fit the shell really nicely. So that's coming out by 10 mil from standard. So yeah, absolutely awesome. How does it drive? I think what I can kind of explain by that, comparing it to the D4 and comparing it to other people's cars that I've driven, is my only sort of slight gripe about it is it's slightly less pointy. So I mean, I can adjust that out, and I think I need to play around with the settings more, but it was like that out of the box, and out of the box it tended to understeer a little bit, and it needed a bit of work at the front, sort of changing these suspension arms around a little bit, changing where the suspension was working. You can get rid of the IFS and having upright suspension at the front there, but I quite like the IFS. I think it's pretty pimped. I'm going to keep that for a bit longer, I think. But yeah, it did tend to understeer a little bit, and it had to work that out. Now I think it doesn't understeer too badly, but sometimes it will do it if you are not preempting the corner. So if you're not thinking ahead and you're not sort of breaking into a corner or making it step out into a corner. So through a tight section of a track, I find it quite hard work. But then the bonus of that is that the back end is just like a perfect pendulum, and you come out of a corner into a long sweeping bend, and it will just hold the back end out there all the way around the track, and it's really nice to sort of link turns and just work really sweet. So I'm really pleased with sort of mid to long bends with it. I need to work on the chassis a little bit for my shorter bends. But these are all things, like I say, you can tweak and mess around with. Incidentally, I have the battery set in the furthest forward position to help with that front grip as well. and obviously the motor right back there. But even with the motor high, I gained a little bit more front grip, but then the lack of rear grip made it really snappy. So it was much better with it as it sort of comes in the box with it set out back. Settings wise, I run about negative 10 degrees of camber at the front, 0 degrees at the back. It's the standard setting, I can't remember what it is at the back here, of toe. I think it's something like 2 or 3 degrees of toe at the back. At the front, I run a gentle toe out. You see it's not towing out huge amounts. But the camera and caster there, when it's on full lock, you can see that it's really nicely flat patched on that inside edge. Does have a slight sort of lean back to it, and the outside one is really leaning, so you don't get that sort of outside wheel is just smoothly gliding around rather than gripping up, and it's the inside wheel that's doing all the work, which if you watch a lot of guides on setups, they will talk about that quite a lot. I'm no setup guru, but that's kind of how I've gone with copying other people online and so on, and it is driving pretty well. So that's kind of a starter guide. But overall, I'm really pleased with the D5. I'm definitely not going to be changing it anytime soon. I'm just going to be doing the few other little upgrades that I'm talking about doing. If you want something that's more snappy, then maybe a D4 or MST RMX. I know it's been a bit better front end grip wise than this on the track. I mainly drive on carpet. I need to go and have a go at Slide House on their P tile, and I need to go to back up to NRD and get on their track as well. So there it is, 1D5. The chassis are fairly cheap as starter kits, which I think a lot of people are getting into, the fact that they're only sort of £95 as a starter kit. But like I've shown you, the rabbit hole can go deep, you can continue to spend. But yeah, what a great little car. Here is some footage of me driving it at some of our skid nights. I'll do another video which talks about the new venue and how you can join us on some skid nights in Lincoln. And yeah, hope to catch you there. I hope this video has helped you have a little look under the shell of my D5.